Uh, Good morning, brothers, sisters, and friends, and all you joining online. We are indeed living in trying times, such as we have never seen before. It is almost surreal to see the world on pause, and it came so suddenly. A few weeks ago, we were leading normal lives, and we must shelter in place. For families, it may seem like an in-house holiday. For those who can work from home, it is a change of routine. For those who are forced not to work, it is a huge concern. For all of us, the possibility that we or one of our loved ones will get the coronavirus is a frightening vision. The vision of a recession that may and probably will occur is also scary. These are trying times indeed for the faithful. Our willingness to trust in God is truly being tested. Though we are under the shadow of His wings, it doesn't mean we will be exempt from the trials of this virus. The truth is, we all will be affected in some way. In fact, we are tested by trials many times in our lives, some minor, some huge. We do not have control over when we are suddenly put into times of suffering, but we do have a choice as to how we respond. I did a talk on this subject back in 2013 with slides and videos of my experience with suffering after my car accident back in 2007. You can find it, by the way, on YouTube by searching Why God Allows Suffering and Grant Anderson. I was not prepared to address the sudden recent events we are living with the coronavirus. It takes me a bit of time and practice to do an exhortation due to my disabilities. So, I'm using an exhortation that I prepared to do in January. The memorial service was canceled due to the snow conditions then, so I'm going to give it this morning instead. It does apply to our situation, however, the circumstances today indirectly. It is, as Matt announced, called the power of prayer. During the close of 2019, we read through Job, as we do every year. The book is very fascinating and thought-provoking in many ways. One point from the book is God doesn't impute direct punishment if one is suffering. If one is suffering, it does not necessarily mean they've done something wrong. Another point is how we learn lessons from suffering. I'm learning this personally through tragic events in my life as of late. Many of us have suffered in many different ways. Each Sunday we are reminded of those who struggle as we hear the prayer list requests announced. We pray for those who suffer from cancer, old age, brain injury, loss of loved ones. The list seems endless. So that we may at times feel that the prayer list just keeps getting bigger and our prayer is not effective. We may routinely say prayers, almost robotically. It's important, however, that we keep the intensity of those prayers going. Lessons of suffering and how to accept and deal with it come from Job. But there are some other lessons as well. One of them is the power of prayer and caring for others, especially in their time of need. As we know, Job's 3 friends were not particularly comforting for him when he was in need of help. They put him in much hardship and judged him harshly. What's interesting is that Job did not take his condescending friends off his prayer list. Pause and consider this before writing off someone who is because they made us mad. Let's turn now together to Job 42, which we read. In Job 42, going from verse 7 to verse 9, we read, After the Lord had spoken these words to Job, the Lord said to Eliphaz, My wrath is kindled against you and your two friends, for you have not spoken of me what is true, as my servant Job has. Now therefore go to my servant Job and offer up for yourselves a burnt offering. And my servant Job shall pray for you, for I will accept his prayer, not to deal with you according to your folly. So Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar went and did what the Lord had told them. And the Lord accepted Job's prayer. God was angry with Job's three friends, but he accepted Job's prayer for them and didn't deal with them according to the folly we know. This is not a minor point, brothers and sisters. The power we have through prayer is big. Perhaps we are getting edgy even with those that we are stuck in the house with. We should pray for them. There are other examples of other people who were affected by the prayers of someone else. For instance, Moses prayed for the children of Israel when God's anger was aroused against them. That's in Numbers 21. In Numbers 21 we read, in verse 5 and going to verse 8, The people spoke against God and against Moses. Then the Lord sent fiery serpents among the people, and they bit the people, so that many people of Israel died. And the people came to Moses and said, We have sinned. Pray to the Lord that he take away the serpents from us. And Moses prayed for the people. Verse 8 says, And the Lord said to Moses, Make a fiery serpent and set it on a pole. And everyone who is bitten when he sees it shall live. Moses prayed for the people who sinned against him. The Lord answered his prayer. In Deuteronomy 9, verses 13, 14, 18, and 19, Moses prayed again when the people made a molten calf. Reading from Deuteronomy 9. The Lord said to me, being Moses, I have seen this people, and behold, it is a stubborn people. Let me alone, that I may destroy them and blot out their name from under heaven. And I will make of you a nation mightier and greater than they. Then I, being Moses, lay prostrate before the Lord as before. 40 days and 40 nights I neither ate bread nor drank water, because of all the sin which you had committed. For I was afraid of the anger and hot displeasure which the Lord bore against you, so that he was ready to destroy you. But the Lord hearkened to me at that time also. God said he would make of Moses a nation mightier and greater than the people. And what did Moses do? He prayed for them rather than get a reward without them. Brothers and sisters, do we prostrate ourselves in prayer for others, even when they are wicked? Pause and consider. Do we want them to share in the reward we hope to receive when we are mad at them? This is indeed a hard thing to do, but let's not underestimate the power of such prayers. In 1 Chronicles 20, No, 1 Chronicles 30, I'm sorry. In 1 Chronicles 30, verses 18 and 20 says, "For a multitude of the people had not cleansed themselves, yet they ate the Passover. Hezekiah prayed for them, saying, 'The good Lord pardon everyone who sets his heart to seek God, even though not according to the sanctuary rules of cleanness.' And the Lord heard Hezekiah and healed the people." Love all those H's there. And the Lord heard Hezekiah and healed the people. When God hears our petitions. Like Hezekiah, we have the power to do good to those who aren't perfect or don't do things the way we think they should. The power of sincere prayer for others can save them. It also saves us. Going back to Job's prayer, we read in 42 and 10 of Job, which we read this morning. The Lord restored the fortunes of Job when he prayed for his friends, and the Lord gave Job twice as much as he had before. We saw the figures and numbers. Soak that in. He got twice as much as he had before. Not only did the friends benefit from Job's prayer for them, but he benefited too, big time. Praying for the good of others, even when they mistreat us, is a win-win situation. Nehemiah prayed for the people to rebuild Judah. In Nehemiah chapter 2, verses 4, 5, and 8, it says, "The king said to me, 'For what do you make request?' So I prayed to the God of heaven. And I said to the king, 'If it pleases the king, send me to Judah, that I may rebuild it.' And then the king granted me what I asked, for the good hand of God was upon me." The power we yield to prayer is powerful and can build up our ecclesias. We need to pray for God's people, as Hezekiah and Moses did. We have the power to sanctify others. In 2 Kings 4, verses 32 to 34, we read of Elisha and the Shunammite woman's son. When it says, "When Elisha came into the house, he saw the child laying dead on his bed. So he went in, shut the door upon the two of them, and prayed to the Lord. Then he went up and lay upon the child, and as he stretched himself upon him, the flesh of the child became warm." We may not have the power to raise children from the dead, but through prayer, we do have the power to sanctify them. I spent New Year's Eve at Sister Sue Emmerich's house. While there, she showed me something I had written for her when she suffered one of the most difficult challenges in life one can handle or one can face: the loss of her son. Serendipitously, New Year's Eve is also the day we read Job 42 in the readings. The thoughts I wrote for her then ties into our thoughts for this morning regarding the power that faith and prayer have to sanctify others, especially our children. Ryan died in 2006, a year before my car accident. It affected me deeply. In fact, when I started to come out of my 6-week coma, they say I said Ryan's name. He must have been in my mind as I laid there unconscious. I'd like to share with you now my words to Aunt Sue. Here's what I wrote when I was 19 years old. 1 Corinthians 7 verse 14 tells us clearly that children are sanctified by a believing parent. During the conquest of the Promised Land by Israel, a faithful woman named Rahab saved her entire family from destruction because of her faith. Rahab was a harlot of the enemy city named Jericho. She had heard how the God of Israel fought for Israel and knew that trusting in the earthly king of Jericho would mean certain destruction. After hiding men of Israel who came to spy out the land, she asked of them to spare the life of her father, her mother, her sisters, and her brothers. God granted her wish. After Joshua fit the battle of Jericho, and the walls came tumbling down, guess what hadn't tumbled down? You know, the section of the wall which held Rahab and all her family. Who knows how many more? But all her family was saved. For the sake of a faithful woman, God saved an entire family. There are many other examples of this principle in scriptures, but one of the most moving examples, I think, is taken from the life of Job. Job was a man who lived very early in biblical history, most say, most probably during the time of Abraham. It is written that Job was perfect and upright, and one that feared God and departed from evil. However, even still, God allowed Job to suffer greatly. Imagine yourself, in a short period of time, losing all your finances, the support of your spouse, all 10 of your kids, and even suffering excruciating physical pain from a disease. All this and more, Job suffered not because of anything he had done. In the end, Job learned many lessons about the purpose of man. And the Lord restored Job's losses, Matt read. Also, the Lord gave Job twice as much as he had before, we mentioned. Job did receive twice as much in material wealth and prosperity of what he had before his loss. However, the only thing he didn't receive a double portion of was his offspring. He was given the same number of kids or children as he lost in the beginning. Why was this? Why was everything else doubled except the number of children? Did God make a mistake? I don't think so. We know that can't be true. And the day of resurrection, how fitting would it be to find Job reunited with his first 10 children, who along with Job's second 10 children complete God's promise of a double portion of all that Job had. This hope of resurrection is a hope that Job had and has been promised to us if we too believe as Job did. And if we believe as Job did, then death is not the end, but only a time of rest, of sleep until families will be reunited. May we hold on to that hope. I love this verse from Lamentations 22:3, which says, "Through the Lord's mercies we are not consumed, because his compassions fail not. They are new every morning. Great is their faithfulness. The Lord's is my portion, says my soul. Therefore, I hope in him." This concludes my words from way back then. We don't know whether the first 10 children were faithful, but it's very likely they were sanctified through Job's faith and prayers, just as his 3 friends were. James 5, verses 15 and 16 says, "The prayer of faith will save the sick man, and the Lord will raise him up. And if he has committed sins, he will be forgiven. Therefore, confess your sins to one another and pray for one another, that you may be healed. The prayer of a righteous man has great power in its effects." Ponder this again. The prayer of a righteous man has great power in its effects. I made magnets at my job with this verse on them. My sister Cassie designed the artwork that went on them for me. I'm going to pass them out next time I see you, God willing.
Great, we'll put it up. Great, show it up to the camera.
As a recap, our prayers can save a sick man, help him be forgiven, and heal ourselves, save our loved ones, and heal ourselves. We are not powerless. No, not at all. Luke 6 and verse 27 and 28 says, "But I say to you that here, love your enemies, do good to those who hate you, bless those who curse you, pray for those who abuse you." Jesus was the ultimate example of loving and caring for his enemies. He said while he was on the cross in Luke 23, verses 3 and 4, "Father, forgive them, they know not what they do." In 1 John 3 and 16, it says, "By this we know love, that he laid down his life for the brethren. This is the same love it is for the love of Jesus and life he gave, that we come together every Sunday to remember him like we do this morning. And it is through prayer we do petition him now. Let us use this power wisely, this prayer power wisely, especially now in a time of universal trouble, global trouble. We need to be diligent in prayer.